no radio at all. Not even with the bombing plane that's coming over. All radio is dead.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
I'm going to make you one of the rising up.
Welcome to another episode of Horror of the Worlds, where we talk about horror movies and how they've been influenced from around the world. I'm Curtis Gerhardt.
I'm Steve Miller.
And today we're kind of competing between the better of the movies.
And this is an understandable competition. I feel like both of these have gone down in history as at least the two most influential horror movies in the werewolf genre.
Yes. Like, I think that's like one of the things. Like, when everyone talks about a werewolf transformation, they're talking about one of these two movies.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure if you like horror movies, you know what two movies we're talking about.
Oh, hell yeah.
And we're talking about the battle of American Werewolf in London
versus The Howling.
Yes. Like, one thing I do enjoy about these two movies, these were the two movies, regardless of what transformation, what movie you like more, these were the ones that changed what werewolves look like in movies.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like these are the two that really started to look, because a lot of the movies before this was more Wolfman.
Yeah,
It wasn't so...
more man than wolf. Now this one was, these two were the first ones to push the more wolf than man.
Yes. So a lot of the times it was either, like, when they were a werewolf, they were pretty much a wolf. Like, there was a dog on set, or it was a man dressed up as a...
Yeah,
with extra hair. It looked like a hairless Chewbacca.
Yeah,
in a sense.
I feel like that's what pushed these two movies' creep factor is the more unhuman look.
And the reason why people battle with this is the reasons why it changed everything, because of how beautiful these transformations were.
This is definitely not about who's the better writer, who's the better cast, because we could go back and forth about this bullshit all day. Legends came from both of these movies. And it's really about taste, I guess, more than anything. How you want to be fueled through your movie.
You have Rick Baker going on one set, going on or started off on The Howling, if I'm not mistaken. It was Rick Baker.
Yes.
And then he owed John Landon, with what I remember hearing, he owed John Landon something, and then he pretty much quit The Howling and went over to Landis's movie.
Yes, but
John Landis, my bad. I said London at first, but John Landis, and then he gave him his assistant.
Yeah, but his assistant went off to do all kinds of great movies that you're still pushing for greatness today. Yeah. I believe he also worked with Spielberg on the set of Jurassic Park after doing The Howling. Well, not right after doing The Howling, but it's one of his many great movies that he's done.
Both are great directors. You have John Landis from American Werewolf in London, and then you have Joe Dante in The Howling. Yeah. Two phenomenal directors. Because, I know John Landis wrote and directed American Werewolf in London, where I think Joe Dante was the second or third in line to direct The Howling, if I remember that correctly. At the same time, though, American Werewolf in London only has one sequel compared to The Howling has
This is like six. Yeah.
Right.
Nothing. They're all shadows in the fucking background of The Howling, the original Howling. I mean, I feel like this one really set a standard that was kind of hard to compete with. As far as horror-driven, I feel like American Werewolf in London was more... It was a great balance of comedy-driven as well as horror.
I think that's like one of the battles too, because I hear a lot more people that review movies say that Howling is more comedic than horror, and then American Werewolf in London is more horror than comedic, and I feel like it's the complete opposite, or they're getting the movies mixed up, because American Werewolf is for me personally, I feel like American Werewolf in London is a comedy horror, like where it's a comedy with horror elements, compared to The Howling is a horror movie with some comedy elements.
Yeah, I feel like it's the reason why most werewolf movies now have spits of comedy in it. It's because this, as an indie film, if you're not into serious movies, this movie almost takes itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And in that light, you probably find it comedic. Like, come the fuck on, man. Like, we were just talking about the big transformation scene in The Howling, and why didn't you act quicker? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, to do a quick synopsis, because I think The Howling is kind of beats the American Werewolf in London because it came out, I think, a couple months beforehand. But this quick synopsis. So grab your Dr. Pepper. So David and Jack, two American college students, are backpacking through Britain when a large wolf attacks them. David survives with a bite, but Jack is brutally killed. As David heals in the hospital, he's plagued by violent nightmares of his mutilated friend, who warns David that he is becoming a werewolf. When David discovers a horrible truth, he self-deletes himself before the next full moon, causes him to transform from man to murderous beast.
I feel like that part of the synopsis is what made it a comedy, and gotta be honest, Jack carried this fucking movie. Every time he showed up,
that was so... No, I agree with you there. Like, if you read the synopsis, it doesn't come off as a comedy at all.
No.
Like, it sounds scary. It sounds a lot like Scrooge or something like that. Like three holy ghosts coming in like on Christmas night,
right?
Kind of thing. Like where it's like, oh, he comes in, spooks. I kind of feel like this movie takes a lot from the classic horror movies, a lot of like the giallo, or the Hammer horror films, I should say, where at times when there was a horrific event or something that was just kind of like overstimulating, all of a sudden Jack comes up with comedy, even though he looked gross and grotesque and makeup was
so fucking good.
It's so amazing. Like, that's the thing, regardless, that movie, his effects what made the movie really good.
Yeah,
but it kind of lightened the mood a little bit. Like, it kind of got you like tight-fisted to all of a sudden like, okay, I could breathe, relax, and I'm laughing, you know. It was a great mix of the two.
It's kind of funny to have your best friend come back from the dead and go, hey man, go ahead and kill yourself.
And they never that's the crazy thing, is that they never,
it's the way they presented it that made it funny.
The great thing is, though, like, they never hated each other.
No,
because it's like, I want to say David, he ran away when the wolf attacked, and then he came back to kind of fight it off and everything, but Jack was never like, you let the wolf kill me.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
there was nothing, there
we're
was like
all
no animosity.
Suffering because of this shit.
Yeah. So like one of the things I hated about the effects on American Werewolf in London, before we get the transformation scenes, is the werewolf when it first attacks David and Jack, because it is extremely basic and it's bad. I don't know if it was better when it was on VHS and on the big screen back then, where the grain will hide the effects. But if you actually watch this movie in high def, it just looks like they got the wolf head and it's like rawr, rawr, and it was just like,
yeah,
like, there was like no emotion in it. Like, it was
actually quite the opposite than with Dog Soldiers. With Dog Soldiers, when I watched an updated version of it, the graininess being taken away, it felt like you could focus more on the movie and you didn't have to fight to see the action, because in that movie there's a lot of fast-paced action going on. But you're right, with this one, it almost allowed less wiggle room for your creation.
But it didn't take away from the transformation scene.
No, absolutely not.
But this movie is through and through a great, well-paced werewolf movie. Like, if you're okay with a comedy, but you don't like serious horror movies, this is a great start for a werewolf movie, I feel like.
All right, so with The Howling, the synopsis, in Los Angeles, television journalist Karen White, played by Dee Wallace, is traumatized in the course of aiding the police in their arrest of a serial murderer. Her doctor recommends that she attend an isolated psychiatric retreat led by Dr. George Wagner, played by Patrick McKinney. But while Karen is undergoing therapy, her colleagues, Chris, investigates the bizarre circumstances surrounding her shock. When his work leads him to suspect the supernatural, he begins to fear for Karen's life. I feel like this one is clearly a more serious from the get-go, and that's what I liked about not just the transformation scene, but the pace of the movie overall. It's more of a mystery, not necessarily a whodunit kind of thing.
Yeah, this one does kind of go closer to a whodunit. Like, it's more story-driven.
Right.
Especially knowing what the outcome of this movie is, you want that action so much quicker. So just that slow build-up is just so tedious.
This
personally,
movie, this werewolf movie isn't the first werewolf movie I've seen, but it was because of that it remains my favorite to this day, because the way it sets itself apart from all the other horror werewolf stories is it's the only one that tries to stick to a serious role.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to me, watching it, it made the transformation scene a bit more terrifying. Not with just practical effects, but the cadence overall.
I don't know though. I want to say, like, but the first transformation scene they showed, I don't like what they did. I wish they would have went claymation instead of doing the whole.
Claymation has its own creep factor. Yeah.
Well, because like the first like transformation you see is like when they actually, oh gosh, what are the two? The gypsy woman and Dee Wallace's husband.
Yeah.
When they actually made love and stuff, and they became wolves.
The silhouette wolves.
The silhouette drawing. So that's what I mean. I felt like I wish it kind of would have had the funds to do a claymation transformation or something like that instead of just that, because that right there kind of took me out of this movie from when it was and the effects that we had at this time frame. This felt like it was something that would have came out, back in the 50s or 60s for that moment.
Yeah, in its defense, it seems like they were clearly saving up all that funding for the big one, almost
yes.
at the climax of the movie, really.
Granted, I mean, it does have quite a bit of stars. I want to say, what is it? Dick Miller. He was typecast in every like horror movie. Like pretty much a horror movie came in. I'm pretty sure they called him. Like, hey, you want a piece of this
play
movie?
Another sleazeball?
What's I mean, like sleazeball? Like he was the librarian in the.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. Like he played the delivery guy in Small Soldiers, which was another Joe Dante movie. He was in almost every Joe Dante movie. He was even I want to say the janitor in Chopping Mall. Like he was just in everything. But he is a phenomenal actor. If you've seen his face, I'll post it here. You've seen a movie with him in it.
Yeah.
Or if you're our age, you've probably seen Small Soldiers, and you're like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah, right.
I do enjoy The Howling. I just hate the pacing of The Howling.
Oh man, I feel
that's my biggest complaint for this movie.
I could feel you on that one. Sometimes, looking back at it, watching it for the billionth time, I was like, all right, I can see everybody's argument with the pace of the movie overall, but it's one of those movies that you gotta kind of be in the mood for, I guess. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, that's why I love it so much. I mean, it definitely sets itself apart from the other ones, especially with its horror, the transformation scene. The bladder effects, although they might have been overused, definitely added a grotesque sound effect and movement abnormality that kind of creeped me out.
So yeah, I guess that we could go ahead and, well, I guess like the whole like review for The Howling. Like, I know I would recommend watching The Howling if you're more into a darker, serious werewolf movie. Is dated. I mean, both of these movies are dated. Yeah. They both look great, but if you're,
they're still the competition.
Yeah, we're still talking about it. Other people are still talking about it. It is a thing because we love special effects when it comes to horror movies.
Yeah.
And especially if nowadays they're finally getting back to some practical effects where it's just like back then it was practical or really bad CG or they scratched the film, CG. But it was just, that you can't be real.
No, you really can't. And with this one, I felt like they, not to bag on Rick Baker or anything like that, but it felt like they showed a lot more with this transformation. Not saying that Rick Baker couldn't have done more, but I just feel like
he did do more. John Landis took some of it out, and Rick Baker for the longest time, or I guess until he saw the movie with other people in the theater, he was really upset with John Landis cutting some of his scenes from the transformation.
Yeah, you robbed us of
like
a good half of a hate.
So my biggest issue with The Howling is the whole transformation scene, as great as it is and as effective as it is, it's just so long, I feel like it loses its energy. But it's the exact opposite when it comes to American Werewolf in London, where it happens so quickly, like the energy's there, it's a one-pump chump type moment.
Yeah.
But the whole moment I was talking about with Rick Baker being upset was, I guess, he filmed a longer scene of the snout coming out and that whole area, but John Landis only took like 7 seconds from it. Like everyone loved it, but he was like, I spent so much time and so much money to do this effect, and you just cut all of it out.
They showed all of it. That's what I really liked about The Howling, is the fact that they showed all of it. Sure, she had to sit there stupefied for a good half of it, and all of us are sitting there going, just smack him. Do something.
Like run,
why are you
shake.
standing there?
Like almost when the transformation's done, she grabs a bottle.
Yeah, a bottle of acid and throws it at his face or some shit like that. It was... Overall, watching the transformation made the wolf, in my opinion, more terrifying in presentation. I feel like hearing the bones snap and watching the nose push out and hearing that gush of bones and guts, as it just transformed. I thought that was.
I think that's kind of the thing with the Howling. That transformation looked more scary. It didn't look painful. It looked scary, and the bladder effects, even though they verge on that whole being overused, I feel like it kind of gives it that something is boiling on the inside. Like your body is transforming from the inside,
naturally
and it's
overheating. Yeah.
Stuff. Which I mean, I guess it kind of works for the movie, but it just seems like a waste of time for a wolf transformation. I mean, I guess in my head, like an actual werewolf transformation.
I mean, I strongly disagree with it, but I definitely see where you're coming from with that one. Absolutely. I don't know. It stuck with me because it's one of those ones that you could forget how slow that movie was with how much that scene sticks out in your head. Well, at least it did for me. And with American Werewolf in London, what stuck out to me was the end presentation. Like with Howling, it had strong points.
Yes.
Almost like the face of the wolf was to depict a pentagram.
Well, it really did. If you actually look at the ears, like,
the tuft on the cheeks and all that stuff. Yes, it had a pentagram look.
Extremely demonic, but if you also want to poke fun at it, it's a bunny rabbit. It's an angry bunny rabbit.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Versus the hell dog.
Yeah, like a giant fat dog, like a bulldog that just has a snout. But I think that's the thing. That's why these two movies have different werewolves. They're not the same style or anything else, which makes them great and what they made everything. So you have the Howling that, as I joke, it kind of looks like a giant rabbit, but it's bipedal. Like it stands up on its two legs. You know, when it moves around or whatever, like it's that man still.
Inhuman as fuck still with movement. And so you're sitting there as a fucking person understanding practical effects going, how did that guy stand to be in that outfit for so long? I mean,
any of these guys, and like I always give a lot of props to any special effects artists that or any I guess still actor are put in these suits, and a lot of them don't absorb water. You just sit in a puddle of your own sweat and just
it's hard to get out of. So yeah, bathroom breaks are out of the question for some of these outfits.
With American Werewolf in London, it did look more wolf-like.
Was American Werewolf in London, wasn't it a little bit more animatronic with the facial features?
When it came to the wolf itself, I want to say it was almost from like they had, I think it was like two different versions, like a full body where it kind of moved around, but then it was almost a torso up where they kind of moved from the shoulders and the like animatronic.
Yeah.
But the transformation, I enjoyed this one a whole lot more because it was painful. You could see that David didn't want to transform. Like he was scared. It was painful. The body pulling, his feet stretching, his torso stretching, the snout, like everything looked painful. Almost like I don't know last time or if you've seen it or any of you guys, but like Cat People. There are the two transformations, a brother and the sister, where the brother loved to transform into the cat. Like he enjoyed that pain and the manipulation of the body.
Right, like a fucked up Hellraiser BDSM thing. That's how I watched The Howling. When I watched it, it's like
it was pleasure.
He's gone through it so much that he now finds a sick pleasure in the pain of transforming because he's going to get
the power that it gives him.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's both completely understandable. I guess I like pain more than pleasure. I guess something to talk about my psychiatrist too, my therapist.
Well, that's once again we're talking about one of the best things in a horror comedy is that comedy takes you out of that discomfort zone and puts you in a comfort zone, just to rip you out of it again. And they did that very well with the with the transformation scene. But like I can't remember if it was Blue Moon or whatever was playing in the background. It was funny to have something soft and elegant playing in the background as this guy's going through a nightmare
That's
experience.
The thing. These two movies are schlocky in that sense where I think every soundtrack in American Werewolf in London had either like Wolf, Moon, or like Midnight in it. Like all the tracks. Like it didn't matter what the song was. It was like, does it have Moon in it? It's in the movie.
There we go.
But with The Howling, there was a lot of actors and background stuff that portrayed to previous Wolfmen or different directors that played Wolf movies and stuff. So each one was ensconced in werewolf like history or knowledge or any of that stuff, which is awesome. Like someone did their homework.
There was also the difference between the two as far as what the pack would do. So in The Howling, you had a pack of people that almost treated this like a rite of passage, and they were all a part of it. Versus in American Werewolf in London, what kind of drove a different kind of horror was the group of people were like, beware of that shit.
Yeah.
Avoid it. don't go out there.
Even
at
then,
night.
you were isolated in American Werewolf. Like, it was that individual. Like, it was him. You know, like, when one person died, another werewolf came. So there was that fear of individualism compared to...
The fear of the mob.
Yeah. When in the Howling, it was a mob because, if I'm not mistaken, they went to a retreat in order for all this to kind of happen. Like, you know, you're already secluded and all to yourself. So it was the whole cult, the whole pack. You know?
It was like their party before the slaughter kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't know it at the time, but that's what I enjoyed about it the most is, I don't know, it was kind of like a gang. I kind of liked that. It felt, true to the wolf.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you stick with the wolf pack. There's no lone wolf in this one. Versus American Werewolf in London, there was only one. And correct me if I'm wrong, we don't find the original. Well, I guess the original's revealed a little bit.
He is for like 2 seconds, like I said. Like, he was a wolf that it looked like they just had the head and they just moved it around. And when some of the, I don't know if they were farmers, or whatever, but the gentleman in the bar that told him, don't like stay on the streets, get in before dark, all that stuff. One of those guys ended up shooting the werewolf, and he saw that it was a farmer or something like that down the road. So you saw the original werewolf die.
But it's not like they didn't keep to the American. I guess that's where American Werewolf in Paris veered off. Is in order to get rid of the curse, you have to kill the original, the one that bit you. They did not have anything like this in either of these movies, if I remember correctly.
No, not really.
There was no typical tropes of how to, like, a silver bullet shoots. Yeah, a silver bullet's going to kill anybody.
Yeah, it will.
But, yeah, they didn't have anything like that in this with the crosses, pentagrams, or anything like that. Other than the pentagram on the wall in American Werewolf in London.
I'm curious. They don't say why it was up there. Like, it was just like, we don't talk about that. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And stuff. But I know that's usually like the whole sign to keep the keep away. You know, like almost that red paint on the door to kind of keep away those spirits.
Yeah. Well, the pentagram was right side up in the bar versus upside down.
Yeah. So
like the as above, so below kind of thing going on. Mm-hmm. They like high spirits up in this bitch. Get the fuck out.
Well, I think also a little bit of I think one of the things that kind of really helps out Landis's American Werewolf in London, being just one werewolf, is not so much budget and not everything there, was wolves at the time were extinct in England or like Britain, that whole area. Like, they were non-existent because we killed them off because of, I can't remember if it was Americans. Because I don't know if it's like us in America helped kill them off because of production or
Hides
just population, everything else, or if it was just Britain's influx of human growth and all that stuff. So, but they were extinct at the time. I think they're not so much extinct anymore out in the wild. They're just very, very scarce.
Free roam, that's for sure.
Yeah. But also, one great thing about my movie, and what makes my movie better, is Michael Jackson, I guess, saw this movie and said, "Get me that director," and made Thriller.
I think I want to say that the guy that did The Howling had something to do with I can't remember who did Ozzy Osbourne. He might have been the same guy that did Bark at the Moon for Ozzy.
Oh, I should have looked into that one. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same special effects or something like that from it. But I don't think Joe Dante directed Bark at the Moon music video. Don't quote me on that.
Don't think he directed it, but I want to say that somebody from the movie had something to do with the visual effects. Because there was a lot of familiarity about his long baggy like suit of fur going on there. I don't know.
I'll look that up after this video. But if you guys know, please leave it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know.
While you're leaving that in the comments, like, subscribe, share our video on your Instagrams, your Twitter. You know, we'll put up our links at the end of this video. But
let Curtis know how right I am about The Howling, because...
What, right that it sucks?
No, fuck you. It's the best.
No, I honestly, wholeheartedly, I cannot say that The Howling sucks.
Oh, they're both in my collection. I just feel like this one drove me into more werewolf movies more than the other. But I want to honestly say that that movie got me, American Werewolf in London, got me into horror comedy for sure.
I feel like that's a great gateway to anything, if it's horror comedy or into werewolves, and it's relatively lighthearted. It is scary. It is gruesome. It is sick.
I think
But it's a great gateway if someone's mature enough when it comes to the
it had to have
grotesqueness.
paved the way for the next two movies that we're about to talk about for sure. I mean,
Oh, definitely had the influences. So much like you can see the influences from The Howling in actually both of these movies, because both of these wolves look like
yeah, they got that.
the Howling.
Yeah,
like that whole bipedal.
The very tall, creepy looking, pointed.
You know, when we're talking about that, I almost should have picked Ginger Snaps, because that was more wolf-like
Yeah.
than like the Wolf of Snow Hollow. Like the Wolf of Snow Hollow, like I'll talk kind of briefly about this movie, because if you haven't seen it, because it is still relatively new, because I feel like this movie got hidden because of COVID.
Oh, there were so many things that hit. I feel like if you weren't along the lines of that sarcastic comedy, or the laughing at the guy that's down and out kind of comedy, you're not going to like this movie. But I thought it was hilarious because it felt like that sheriff was getting the shit in the stick the whole damn movie.
Well, that's the great thing too, is like he had a history, you know, like a drug history or alcohol history, and he just couldn't get his head on straight. Like he was just always, he wanted to be better. He just couldn't be better. Like which the one I'm actually talking about, because I want to say he wrote, direct, and starred in it, Jim Cummings.
I didn't know.
So I think that's like one of the reasons he did incredibly great feeling like a piece of shit person. You know, like, I mean, you can see he was well-hearted, but he just didn't know how to do it. He didn't know how to act. He was a bad father, but he was well-hearted. He meant good. He just, much like me in a sense. I think that's why I like this movie so much, is because I connected with him, because it's how he says things doesn't come off correctly, or how his actions sometimes don't come off correctly, but it's just, it comes from a good place in the heart.
Right.
Not to mention another character actor where he's been in almost every movie. I want to say this is one of his last ones, or he passed away when this movie was releasing, which is Robert Forster, which he is another great character actor. Jackie Brown, Quentin Tarantino's movie.
Jackie Brown
like he was the bail bondsman and stuff. So I mean, like he actually had a good role from that. But if you like mystery whodunit movies, and this does it really well.
That one does it very well. I feel like with a lot of the whodunits, it's like you got a handful of people, and the person you think is the bad guy is there the whole fucking time. You just don't know which one it is. I feel like this one does a great job at leading you on the whole fucking time.
And I think that's one of the similarities between the movies that we chose before and these movies, because this one is much like The Howling. This is more horror with comedy elements.
Yeah.
Compared to your movie is more comedy with horror elements.
Yeah.
Before we get to his movie, I'm going to give a very quick synopsis of The Wolf of Snow Hollow that came out in 2020. A stressed out police officer struggles to not give into the paranoia that gives his small mountain town as bodies turn up after each full moon. It feels like a sentence I would write because it doesn't make sense to me.
I feel like that loses the thrill of this whole movie, really. I mean, it's not just a whodunit, it's a whodunit, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, is it some serial killer, or are we watching another horror movie? Like, I feel like this one tried to keep you guessing the whole fucking time.
Yeah, because you have bodies turning up, or like, and carcasses turning up, and they're brutal. You know? I think one of them was a woman ended up getting pretty much her insides, her female parts ripped out and stuff. And it's just, some of them are so, they even make those scenes funny in a weird, sarcastic, fucked up
brutal way. Yeah.
Because it's not like haha funny, but it's like, dude, what the fuck are you saying? Like,
Werewolf Within.
Yes.
So this movie was based off of a game. The synopsis is a snowstorm traps town residents together inside of a local inn, where a newly arrived forest ranger, Finn, and postal worker Cicely must try to keep the peace and uncover the truth behind a mysterious creature that has begun terrorizing the community. This has Milana.
Milana Viontrub.
Yeah,
the
the AT&T chick.
That is a main. Like I knew I saw her from somewhere, but then I realized it was from the AT&T chick. And I'm like, all right, I love this movie no matter what.
This movie
She
has
is a crush.
A whole hell of a cast, really. Sam Richardson plays Finn. I believe he was in Saturday Night Live. There's Harvey.
Guillen?
Yeah, he's plays Guillermo in
Gizmo in Within the Shadows.
with Gizmo. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of good actors that you've seen everywhere in this movie, and it's still, especially if you watched his movie first, you're gonna be wondering, is it a whodunit or a whodunit, or what the fuck is going on here?
Much like, this one is a whodunit mystery, and I don't know. Like, I guess that whole... We really should have said spoilers for these movies. I will put it in the caption, which you've already read the caption of it, because this episode is full of spoilers.
So many. It's hard not to talk about these movies without some of these spoilers. This one, Werewolves Within, is very, very comedy driven. Very little amounts of horror, but it still hits that love of werewolf movies, in my opinion. It delivers. It definitely delivers.
I didn't think I really guessed it, who the werewolf was.
I felt like I didn't guess it.
But like once when you find out who it is, like, oh, this makes complete sense.
It should have been. Yeah, you should have known.
But I also kind of forgot to actually try to figure out who did it, because I was just enjoying the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of those ones where it's like tune in, tune out. Like, it was just enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Another one I think got lost because this came out in 2021, directed by Josh Rubin, but it was, I think, got a lot of flack because of the video game not being so good as well.
The video game played more like a... the video game, in my opinion, was boring.
I think that's kind of it.
It's more like a sus kind of game. It was not... I guess it wasn't very action-packed. It was something that you definitely wouldn't have a problem with your kids playing. I feel like it's even a card game. So, I mean, the card game's fun. It's a great drinking game, for sure. But this movie definitely really over-delivered if you expected it to be anything like the video game.
If you expected it to be a piece of crap, it is definitely not that.
No,
like,
definitely
it is.
Not. This one was heavily slept on, and I have no idea why. I think it's because most people didn't know where these actors were coming from. I want to say Milana was definitely a producer.
Big selling point.
She was a producer in the movie. I mean, this is almost like her fucking movie. I felt like she did a great job with it.
She acted her ass off in this movie. Almost everyone acted so satirically.
Yeah.
Like, it was... Like, no roles were played serious, but they hammed it up in a good professional way.
There was still some serious notes in there. You know, there was definitely the battle of city folk versus town folk. You know what I mean? They wanted to push an oil line through the city or through the town, and half the people, it was literally divided in half. Half of them wanted it, the other half were like, fuck that, get it out of here. So it was... the tension throughout the whole thing was able to provide you a lack of knowledge in who had done it.
No, I honestly probably couldn't have said it any better. Like, it's... I wish this was more of an annual watch, but this is something that I have to be in the mood for.
Yeah?
You know, like,
this is one every time it starts snowing.
No, I could definitely see that.
This is my wintertime movie. Like, everybody's like, ooh, Harry Potter. It's cold, it's wintry. This is my Christmas movie. This is my Christmas movie, really.
I could definitely see that. But actually, both of these movies, like, these are winter movies.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it is just snow. I feel like the snow even plays a part. And
Yeah.
it's not so much a character, but they use the snow.
Yeah, your movie, to me, kind of reminded me of Fargo.
Yes.
It had that kind of humor in it through the whole thing.
That kind of
dry humor.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good though. Oh my god, too funny.
Like, both these movies I highly recommend. You know,
Oh,
I mean, unfortunately, both these movies are not for everyone. As much as I feel like The Howling and American Werewolf in London is for any and all horror fans should at least watch at least once. These.
I don't think
there are
this is-
certain niches.
Yeah, I don't think this fits in. If you're a werewolf fan, you're gonna like this movie. But I can't say that if you're a horror fan. you're gonna like this movie.
Mm-hmm. I can't say the same about mine because mine is so off the wall, and I feel like it's so. I understand why I didn't get a lot of praise.
Oh yeah.
Like I 100%, but it's just I like the kind of humor that it has. It's just that weird, almost annoying humor. You almost start feeling sad for the guy.
The final delivery in the reveal of the werewolf.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming and yet oh so perfect.
And so
that's why I liked it so much, is because
I almost want to say
it made me divide my opinion about the movie in half, and I love it.
Like,
but it's like, oh, fuck.
That's the thing. I feel like it's, especially when you find out who's the werewolf, you either instantly hate this movie or instantly okay, but that okay turns into love this movie.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it's either that. It is going to be a love-hate movie, but it's going to start off with an okay before a love.
Like I said, really hard to talk about that movie without spoiling.
That's why I really don't want to spoil any of these movies that much anymore. That's why I brought it up with Werewolves Within, because I didn't really realize it was a whodunit movie until like near the end. I'm like, oh, like I get it now. Like this movie makes so much more sense. But same with Wolf on Snow Hollow. I didn't really realize. I thought it was just a police investigation, and I thought it was just going to be some rando werewolf or some shit.
I feel like throughout the whole movie was lacking in werewolf. It was kind of like Beetlejuice, how you're like, how much screen time did Beetlejuice actually have? It was like no more than like 10 minutes.
I think it was like 10, 11 minutes.
And that's the same thing with the werewolves in these movies. They didn't overdo it. It felt like with that being done, they didn't. You weren't tired. You weren't tired of it. And that's what I felt like was so great about Werewolves Within, is because by the end, I almost felt, of course, I'm always rooting for the werewolf, but in this one, it was a better battle scene than I thought it'd be. The fight scene, they kept the comedy the whole way through.
That's what I mean. That's why I felt like that movie, like, even they could have lost so much of the action or the not so much reality of it, but the actual the realness of the whole situation, you know, because of how much comedy they had. But it's just, that's why that movie, Werewolves Within, is such a perfect movie when it comes to that. They could have lost it in so many steps. It could have felt like you were watching Airplane or something like that, you know, or like a scary movie, you know. I mean, just a way where it's like, oh, it's just comedy, it's just stupid stuff. I think no, it was.
There's
like
still a
Shaun of the Dead.
storyline you wanted answers to, but at the same time, you're waiting for the next punchline. And they did a great job at making you feel secluded. Like, the whole time, you're like, if I was one of these guys, I'd feel abandoned. They cut off the roadways. You couldn't get out. You couldn't get in because of the snowstorms. You were snow-fucked the whole time.
I almost want to say, like, I almost kind of just said it. Like, it feels like a light version, a more comedy version, slightly more comedy version of Shaun of the Dead. Like, Shaun of the Dead was kind of like serious, but had its funny notes. But with zombies, this one was that close to like Werewolf, you know, but being like comical but serious at the same time.
Yeah,
comical moments, but they were playing the role serious. If you like these movies, so one of the movies I would actually recommend. I did say it earlier on. If you like the wolf type, or if you like, it is a movie that we will be talking about in a different episode. But Ginger Snaps is a great werewolf movie. If this is your
I actually like. Oh, I haven't seen the third installment
I've been watch the sequels.
I could watch every single one of those movies and actually enjoy them. I thought that the cast was really, really well done, and I don't ever get tired of seeing that werewolf.
Yeah,
I have a werewolf book. I feel like should be pushed pretty hard, and hold on, I gotta find the.
And also, like, if you're looking for a weird Canadian humor of a wolf movie, which I guess Ginger Snaps is another Canadian movie, but Wolf Cop.
Wolf Cop, oh my God, Wolf Cop, that is perfect. We're talking about down on your luck fucking sheriff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of those ones. Dog Soldiers, I feel like, is a severely underrated movie.
It is finally getting some traction. I hate how long it took for it to get its traction. I feel like
it's getting its traction because 28 Days Later is finally getting the traction. Because when I first watched 28 Days, that's the first zombie movie to freak me the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And it's because nothing made sense as far as your regular zombie.
It became real.
Yeah, you're like these things. You gotta run. You cardio. If you don't have cardio, you're fucked.
The whole Zombieland of rules come into play.
Yeah. The book that I suggest is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones, and it's because they bring a idea of what it's like to be the werewolf.
A reality factor.
Yeah.
Of it all.
So a spellbinding and surreal coming-of-age story about a young boy living in the fringe of his family who are secretly werewolves and struggling to survive in a contemporary America that shuns them. He was born an outsider like the rest of his family. This book, I heard that several times they have tried to make a movie based off of this book, and all of it comes down to funding. And it's always a flop and gets pushed to the wayside because of that. And with this story, if people were to read it enough, I'd love to see a second installment of the book, because it feels like as soon as it picks up and this boy starts to gain control of his powers, the book ends. And you know there's supposed to be another installment, but it never came. It's like the way All Real Monsters ends. As soon as Ickis gets his powers, all of a sudden the fucking series ends. It pisses me off.
Right. Like, that's the whole thing. You always just want him to actually transform, and it's like he never transforms.
Yeah. Another good one would be another coming-of-age one. Wildling. The Wildling. That one's a good one, and it's just, in my opinion, it's very different in comparison to the rest of them, because this is more of a... It's more like a girl becoming a woman kind of thing. This is it falls along it's like they're trying to tell you about things without telling you about it. You know what I mean?
I think it's a great double feature with Ginger
Yes.
Snaps.
Yes. I feel like it's a really, really fun. How dare I say fun? It's it's a passionate story, in my opinion.
And plus, it has Brad Dourif in it.
Yeah,
like, he's another
not-
horror icon.
I feel like it's a different kind of character for him, because he's not necessarily in the limelight the whole time. He does kick off the story and kind of give it life, but at the same time,
Which that's almost all he ever does. Like, he's never really the main character.
Right.
I'm excluding Child's Play, Chucky.
Yeah. Chucky is
But
almost like his baby, but
he always kind of plays secondary, like almost a co-star in a lot of the movies that he's in. But he always steals the limelight whenever he's on screen.
yeah.
Like, he takes that energy.
Yeah. Other than that, I feel like having werewolf movies, the hardest part is budgeting. When you're getting into a werewolf movie, it's either going to be great because you had strong funding and great artists behind it, or it's going to be a flop because it's got a rubber mask.
And it needs money.
Yeah.
Like, it needs money to be made. I
Right.
think that's one of the reasons. Like, we had zombies, we had vampires, we had all these so much different things that came in mass, the populace. Werewolves never really hit. Like,
Yeah.
there's like, oh, there's a good werewolf movie, there's a good werewolf
Right.
movie. But it's just
Everything's
never...
like Werewolves on Wheels, which, in my opinion, fun movie, but overall, it's not the greatest of movies. But I'd love to see people stop remaking these already terrific movies and try to pick up something that didn't take flight in the first place and update it.
Make it new.
Yeah,
make it new and good.
Because Werewolf on Wheels, I feel like with the proper director and funding, it could be a great story.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's also, of course, in my opinion, it's more of a werewolf movie than a vampire movie, but that's the debate, right? Is Underworld. Underworld, it's, you got the snobby rich white vampires, and then you got the ground dwelling fucking werewolves.
I think that's one of the things, like, Underworld, like, that's a story for a different topic for a different day.
Yeah.
The whole, like, vampires and werewolves, and then you come into, if you want to add witches to it, because all of them are either completely separate or the same.
Right.
There are so many different beliefs when it comes. You know what? I'm gonna stop it right there.
But with the presentation of werewolves, when we're talking about a great presentation and transformation of werewolves, it might have been quick and it might have been CGI, but I feel like Underworld did a great job with the presentation. So
give us something new. That's kind of it. It's like for me, I always like give me something new and practical and enhance it with CG. Enhance it,
not overtake it with
yes.
CG.
Don't do what the Thing prequel did, where they had the practical effects, the practical monsters, but erased them and then put the CG in it.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But You know, it's close to midnight, and there's something evil lurking out in the dark. You know, under the moonlight. You see a sight that almost stops your heart. You know, it's fucking Bridget. Run for your fucking lives. Just turn around. There's no thrill in her.
God damn you, Bridget.
Fucking Bridget. Peace out.